Imagine spending 12 straight hours driving a machine that weighs hundreds of tons. Your hands ache, your eyes struggle to stay open, and every muscle in your body is exhausted. Instead of checking into a warm hotel room, you're told to climb onto a narrow bunk inside the locomotive itself. Just a few inches away, a massive diesel engine never stops roaring, vibrating, and shaking the metal walls around you. For thousands of railroad engineers, this isn't an unusual situation. It's simply another day at work. In this video, we'll explore why train crews often sleep inside their locomotives, how they manage to rest in such harsh conditions, and why many railways continue to rely on this system even today. Freight trains travel enormous distances across remote regions. Along the way, they pass through small railway stations known as turnaround points. These isolated locations are often surrounded by nothing but forests, mountains, or endless open land. There may not be another house, store, or even a mobile phone signal for over 60 miles. When a freight train arrives at one of these stations, it doesn't always stop because it has reached its destination. More often, the crew has simply reached the legal limit of their working hours.
Building and maintaining a full-sized hotel or crew dormitory at every remote station would be incredibly expensive. Heating, electricity, maintenance, cleaning staff, and food services would cost millions every year. Yet some of these isolated stations see only a handful of trains each week. For the railway company, the cheaper solution is obvious. Let the crew rest inside the locomotive. The amount of rest they receive is often surprisingly short. In many cases, dispatchers allow only 3 or 4 hours before the train must continue its journey. Traveling to a nearby town simply isn't practical. First, the crew must complete paperwork, secure the locomotive, and officially end their shift. Then they would need transportation, or a long walk to the nearest accommodations, followed by mandatory medical checks before resting. The return trip alone could consume 2 hours. That would leave barely enough time to sleep. Instead, many engineers simply unfold a mattress or climb into a small bunk located inside the locomotive itself.
There is another important reason crews remain with the train. During harsh winters, temperatures can plunge well below freezing. If a heavy diesel locomotive is completely shut down and left unattended, the cooling system can freeze solid. Water trapped inside the engine may turn to ice, cracking pipes and damaging critical components. Batteries can lose their charge, making it nearly impossible to restart such a massive machine in the middle of nowhere. A locomotive worth millions of dollars could quickly become nothing more than a frozen block of steel. For that reason, someone often remains nearby while the engine continues running. Even as the crew tries to sleep, the locomotive stays alive. Its engine idling, its systems operating, and its machinery constantly humming as it waits for the...
If the dispatcher calls, they may have only a few minutes to prepare the locomotive and resume the journey. Railways operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are no fixed lunch breaks or guaranteed departure times. Everything depends on the dispatcher, who monitors hundreds of miles of railway from a distant control center. If another freight train is delayed or a passenger train is running behind schedule, the entire timetable can change in an instant. That means a crew sleeping inside a locomotive may be awakened at any moment over the radio. Wake up, start the engine. Your track is clear, departure in 5 minutes. There is no option to say, I'm still tired. When the dispatcher opens the route, the train must move. Every minute of delay can disrupt dozens of other trains carrying coal, fuel, industrial equipment, food supplies, and thousands of passengers. That is why many railroad workers sleep fully dressed with their boots still on. The moment they're called, they are ready to return to work.
Sleeping inside a locomotive may sound manageable until you see what those sleeping conditions are actually like. Many people imagine engineers reclining comfortably in padded seats or stretching out on spacious bunks. The reality is far less comfortable. For decades, many locomotives weren't designed with sleeping accommodations at all. Older Soviet-era electric and diesel locomotives, including models like the VL-80 and the 2TE-10 series, had no dedicated resting area. The driver's seat was rigid, the backrest barely reclined, and every surface inside the cab was designed for durability, not comfort. When engineers reached their mandatory rest period, they had to improvise. Some carried wide wooden planks from home. They placed the boards between the driver's seat and the assistant's seat, creating a makeshift bench just wide enough to lie on. A folded jacket or old work coat served as a mattress, while another jacket became a blanket. Others packed inflatable camping mattresses. They would inflate them by hand and spread them across the steel floor at the back of the cab, wherever there was enough space to stretch out. The most experienced crews came up with an even more creative solution. They installed homemade fabric hammocks inside the locomotive, tying them securely to.
Each bunk has a thin foam mattress and safety straps designed to prevent the sleeper from falling during sudden braking or unexpected impacts. But even these improvements can't solve the biggest problem. The noise never stops. Every experienced engineer carries earplugs or heavy-duty hearing protection. Without them, getting even an hour of uninterrupted sleep is nearly impossible. Life inside the locomotive resembles an extended camping trip, except the campsite is made entirely of steel and never stops moving. There is no running water, no sink, no shower, and in many older locomotives, no toilet. Crew members bring everything they need for the journey themselves. Large plastic containers hold drinking water for washing and making tea. Meals are packed before departure, often stored in insulated bags or food containers. Heating food requires creativity. Many crews purchase small electric hot plates or microwave ovens with their own money and install them inside the cab whenever space allows. Years ago, before portable appliances became common, workers often relied on far riskier methods. They would place sealed cans of food near the locomotive's heat exchangers. Within minutes, the metal would become hot enough to warm the meal. Retrieving the can required thick work gloves because the surface was nearly too hot to touch. Although this practice has mostly disappeared, it remained a practical solution for many years. Personal hygiene presents another challenge.
It's difficult to imagine living this way for days at a time. Yet, for many railroad workers, it's simply part of the job. Weather makes the experience even more demanding. During summer, the locomotive's enormous windows act like the glass walls of a greenhouse. Sunlight heats the steel shell until temperatures inside the cab can exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Sweat pours down constantly. Opening the windows brings fresh air, but also clouds of insects, dust, and dirt kicked up by passing trains. Winter brings the opposite extreme. Even with the engine running, icy drafts find their way through every gap and seam in the metal body. Engineers often sleep wearing thick winter jackets, insulated boots, gloves, and wool hats, trying to stay warm while pressed against freezing steel walls. Then there's the sound. Even when the locomotive isn't moving, silence simply doesn't exist. Massive cooling fans operate continuously to prevent electrical systems from overheating. Every few minutes, the air compressors roar to life, forcing high-pressure air into the train's braking system. The sudden blast is powerful enough to make the entire cab shake. Outside, freight trains thunder past on neighboring tracks, causing the ground and the parked locomotive itself to vibrate like a small earthquake. These conditions take a serious toll on the human body. Years of constant vibration often lead to chronic back pain, joint problems, and spinal issues. Long-term exposure to engine noise gradually damages hearing, leaving many veteran engineers with permanent hearing loss before they reach middle age. Most importantly, quality sleep becomes almost impossible. Even when exhausted, engineers rarely sleep for long. A loud compressor, a sudden vibration, a passing freight train, another radio call. Every disturbance pulls them back to full alert.
At first glance, sleeping inside a locomotive might seem like an accepted part of railroad life. Surprisingly, it isn't. Official railway regulations tell a completely different story. According to safety rules and labor regulations, train crews are not supposed to sleep inside locomotive cabs during mandatory rest periods. Engineers are expected to rest only in designated crew facilities, quiet buildings with clean beds, proper heating, good ventilation, and an environment specifically designed for recovery after long shifts. On paper, the rules are clear. After completing a shift, the crew should leave the locomotive, travel to an approved rest house, sleep in proper accommodations, and return only after receiving adequate rest. It sounds ideal, but reality on remote freight lines rarely follows the rulebook. The railway operates on one principle above everything else. Keep the trains moving. Every freight train is connected to dozens of others. If one train falls behind schedule, the delay spreads throughout the network. Passenger services may lose priority windows. Freight terminals become congested. Cargo deliveries arrive late. Factories waiting for raw materials slow production, and shipping schedules begin to collapse. For dispatchers, maintaining the timetable is a constant balancing act. Stopping a train for several hours while the crew travels to distant accommodations could throw an entire railway division into chaos. So instead of recording the stop as an official rest period, it is often classified as something entirely different. The paperwork may describe it as a technical waiting period. Officially, the train is simply waiting for track clearance or a signal to continue. Unofficially, the crew uses those few hours to grab whatever sleep they can. While one engineer climbs onto the narrow bunk, the other... Of course, everyone involved understands the risks. If inspectors unexpectedly arrive at one of these remote stations and discover a crew resting inside the locomotive during what should officially be a technical stop, there can be serious consequences. Crew members may lose bonuses or face disciplinary action. Depot managers can receive heavy financial penalties. For that reason, railroad workers have developed their own unwritten methods of avoiding attention. Cab windows are often covered with blankets, cardboard, or dark fabric so that no one outside can see whether someone is sleeping inside. One crew member stays alert, monitoring the radio while the other rests. If anyone approaches the locomotive unexpectedly, the sleeping engineer can be awakened immediately. These quiet routines have existed for years. Interestingly, railway management is usually aware of the situation. Large inspection teams typically visit major railway hubs, places that are easy to access by road and where company officials can conduct scheduled safety checks. Remote sidings deep in forests, mountains, or isolated stretches of track are a different story. Reaching them may require hours of travel over rough terrain or even access by rail vehicle. As a result, inspections in these locations are far less frequent. Everyone understands the unspoken reality. Strictly enforcing every regulation would create...
If crews were forced to abandon locomotives every time they reached their working hour limit, freight traffic across entire regions could slow dramatically. Thousands of rail cars loaded with coal, steel, fuel, grain, and industrial materials would remain parked on the tracks. Factories might stop production while waiting for critical supplies. Ports could miss shipping schedules. Distribution centers would struggle to keep goods moving. The entire supply chain depends on trains arriving on time. In many ways, the flexibility and endurance of railroad crews has become one of the invisible forces keeping that system running. Most passengers never think about it. When they see a freight train passing by, they notice the powerful locomotives, the endless line of rail cars, and the impressive machinery. Few realize that inside the cab are people who may have slept only a few hours under conditions most would find unbearable. Yet they continue doing the job because they know the railway depends on them. Still, the industry is beginning to change. New locomotives are becoming quieter. Better insulation reduces vibration and outside noise. More comfortable sleeping compartments are being introduced. Remote stations are starting to receive modular crew facilities that can be installed quickly without constructing permanent hotels. For the first time in decades, engineers are beginning to see meaningful improvements in their working conditions. But the biggest transformation may still lie ahead. Advances in automation and artificial intelligence are slowly changing the future of rail transportation. Could technology eventually eliminate the need for engineers to sleep inside locomotives altogether? That possibility is no longer science fiction. It is already beginning to take shape.
Despite the harsh realities of life inside a locomotive, the railroad industry is slowly beginning to change. For decades, engineers accepted freezing winters, scorching summers, endless vibration, and sleepless nights as simply part of the profession. But modern technology is gradually transforming the workplace, making locomotives safer, quieter, and far more comfortable than ever before. The difference between older and newer locomotives is remarkable. Many modern freight locomotives no longer resemble the noisy steel boxes of the past. Engineers have redesigned the cab with comfort in mind. Instead of thin metal walls that allow every vibration and gust of cold air to pass through, today's locomotives use thick insulated panels and double-glazed windows. These improvements help maintain a stable interior temperature while dramatically reducing outside noise. The constant roar that once filled the cab has been reduced to a low mechanical hum. Powerful climate control systems automatically keep the cabin comfortable throughout the year. Whether it's the middle of a freezing winter or the peak of summer heat, engineers can maintain a steady temperature with the touch of a button. The improvements don't stop there. Many of the latest locomotive models include dedicated rest compartments located behind the driver's cabin. Instead of a narrow folding shelf, these compartments feature full-length beds with proper mattresses, individual reading lights, electrical outlets for charging devices, and small fold-out tables where...
And most importantly, quiet bedrooms where engineers can get genuine sleep before returning to work. Instead of spending the night inside a vibrating locomotive, crews can simply walk a short distance from the train to a warm, comfortable building. For many railroad workers, it's a welcome improvement after years of difficult working conditions. Yet even these innovations may represent only a temporary stage in the evolution of rail transportation. The biggest change is already on the horizon: autonomous trains. Around the world, railway companies are investing billions of dollars in automated control systems capable of operating freight trains with little or even no human intervention. These systems use advanced sensors, cameras, radar, satellite positioning, and artificial intelligence to monitor the railway ahead. Computers continuously analyze speed, track conditions, gradients, weather, and signal information. They accelerate smoothly, apply the brakes with remarkable precision, and react to changing conditions far faster than a human operator can. Unlike people, computers never become tired. They don't lose concentration after 12 hours on duty. They don't suffer from exhaustion, stress, or lack.
Similar technologies are being tested in other countries as rail operators search for ways to improve efficiency while reducing operating costs. Even so, replacing human engineers completely remains a significant challenge. Railroads are unpredictable environments. Unexpected obstacles can appear on the tracks. Severe weather can damage infrastructure. Equipment can fail without warning. Emergency situations often require experience, judgment, and quick decision-making that current automated systems still struggle to match. For that reason, many experts believe the future won't be entirely human or entirely automated.
Instead, engineers may become supervisors rather than traditional drivers. Artificial intelligence will handle routine operations, while trained professionals remain on board to monitor systems, respond to emergencies, and make critical decisions whenever technology reaches its limits. It's a future where humans and machines work together rather than compete. Until that day arrives, however, the responsibility still rests on the shoulders of locomotive crews. Every freight train carrying food, fuel, construction materials, automobiles, or industrial equipment depends on skilled professionals who continue to perform one of the most demanding jobs in transportation. Most people will never see what happens behind the cab door. They'll notice only the long freight train passing through a crossing or disappearing into the distance. What they won't see are the long hours, the sleepless nights, and the extraordinary endurance required to keep that train moving. Behind those small illuminated windows are people who have spent years adapting to conditions that most of us would find impossible. Their work rarely receives attention, yet every day they keep entire industries supplied, businesses operating, and communities connected. The railroad may rely on powerful locomotives, advanced engineering, and increasingly sophisticated technology,